What if Arya and Jon Stark were the only ones to face the Night King? No dragons, no armies, no help. Just two Stark siblings against the ancient evil that threatened all of Westeros. It begins on the eve of the long night. Winterfell stood quiet, its halls filled with dread, not movement. The plan had changed. Daenerys had withdrawn her forces, distrust still festering after the cold argument with Sansa. The Unsullied and the Dothraki waited near Moat Cailin. Tyrion advised caution. Bran whispered riddles. But in the cold of the Godswood, Jon and Arya made a silent pact. If no one else would do what needed to be done, they would. They didn't tell anyone. Not even Sansa. She would have never allowed it. Arya had said only 3 words before slipping into the shadows. "We end this." And Jon followed. Not because he believed they'd win, but because someone had to try. The wind howled like a starving beast as they slipped through the dark forests beyond the castle walls. Snow whipped across their faces, but neither flinched. Arya moved like a ghost, Jon like a shadow. No words passed between them. They had one target, the Night King. And here's where it gets insane. No one believed the Night King could be found alone. His army was endless. His generals watched from the shadows. But Arya had learned something in the House of Black and White. How to hunt death. She tracked the unnatural silences, the places where even wind held its breath. That's where he'd be, not among the chaos. But in the eye of it, they found him near the weirwood tree deep in the haunted forest, not far from the ruins of the last hearth. He was alone, at least it seemed that way. He stood still, staring into the face carved in red bark, as if mocking the old gods. Snow settled on his shoulders. The air around him felt wrong. Jon's breath fogged. Arya's didn't. Wait, what? Jon turned sharply. Arya wasn't breathing, not panicking, not gasping. She'd stopped completely, frozen in place. Her eyes wide, her body locked. The cold wasn't just cold anymore, it was commanding. The Night King was pulling at something deeper than fear. Jon gritted his teeth. "Arya," he whispered. No response. That was the trap. The Night King didn't need 1,000 whites. He just needed one moment of doubt. One heartbeat. Of weakness. Jon stepped forward. "You came alone," the Night King finally said. His voice wasn't a voice, it was ice cracking across a lake. Foolish. Jon unsheathed Longclaw. The steel shimmered under moonlight, the blade Valyrian and ancient. "So did you," Jon growled. "Stupid." But the Night King smiled. "Here's where it changes everything." As Jon lunged forward, a blinding gust of wind hit him, knocking him to the ground. Ice shot from the ground like spears, blocking his path. He rolled aside, just as one stabbed where his head had been. The Night King didn't move, but the world obeyed him. The very elements bent to his will. Arya's body suddenly twitched. She gasped, dropping to one knee, and in that moment, she vanished. Now pause. Did you catch that? Arya didn't fall back. She didn't run, she vanished. Like death itself had blinked and lost her for a second. And that was the second Jon needed. He charged, sword raised. The Night King turned and met his blow with a hand made of ancient bone and frost. Steel met ice. Sparks flew. Jon grunted. The Night King smiled wider. "You are the last of fire," he said coldly, pushing Jon back. "The world belongs to silence." But Jon didn't fall. He pushed forward, shoulder into chest, sword grinding against the Night King's palm. The heat from Longclaw began to hiss against the undead's touch. Skin began to steam. The Night King's smile flickered. Behind him, the snow shifted. Arya reappeared, silent, fast, deadly. She had taken the face of death once before. Now she wore nothing, just herself. And in her hand, a dagger of Valyrian steel. Remember this? The same blade meant for Bran. Now aiming for the Night King's spine, Jon saw her. The Night King didn't, but the Night King didn't need to see. He felt. He spun, grabbed Arya mid-air by the throat, and lifted her like a rag doll. Her dagger dropped. Jon screamed and lunged. But another wall of ice slammed between them. Arya kicked, twisted, but his grip tightened. "You are many deaths," the Night King said, almost admiringly. "But I am the last." Arya coughed, eyes narrowing. "Then let me be the one who ends you." With her free hand, she pulled a hidden shard of dragon glass from her wristband and shoved it straight into his eye. Time stopped. Literally. Snow froze mid-air, wind halted. Jon, pressed against the ice wall, watched as cracks spread across the Night King's face like shattering glass. He dropped Arya. He stumbled backward. He screamed. Not a human scream, not a beast's cry, but the sound of winter itself breaking. Then, boom, the Night King exploded into shards of ice, blue fire, and silence. The walls of frost crumbled. The cold snapped. The trees moaned. The very air shook. Jon ran to Arya, who lay in the snow, coughing, face pale. "You good?" he asked, helping her up. Arya grinned through the blood. "Better than him." They looked around. No army to celebrate. No one to witness it. Just two Starks and a world forever changed. But here's the real question. What happens when the realm finds out the Night King was killed? But no one else was there to see it, and worse. What? Rises in the power vacuum left behind? Because death may be defeated, but now the living would start fighting again. The morning after the long night didn't feel like victory. There were no horns of celebration, no toasts raised in firelit halls, just an eerie silence that crawled across the north, clinging to every tree and tower like the last breath of winter. Arya and Jon returned to Winterfell before dawn. Their clothes soaked in snowmelt, blood on Arya's lips, ice burns along Jon's arms. They didn't speak a word as they crossed through the gates. The guards didn't question their arrival, only nodded, confused by the absence of a returning. Army Sansa was waiting. She stood atop the battlements with a thick cloak draped around her shoulders, her eyes narrowed on the empty horizon. When she saw the two of them alone, a chill worse than the snow sank into her chest. "Where are the others?" she asked, stepping down to meet them in the courtyard. "Where's the Night King?" Arya didn't answer. Jon just looked her in the eyes. "It's done." Silence. "What do you mean, done?" Sansa's voice cracked, but only slightly. "The army, the dragons." "There were no dragons," Jon said flatly. "No armies, just us." Arya finally spoke, her voice sharp, direct. "He's dead, we killed him, he's not coming." But the words didn't feel like reassurance. They felt like a threat. Wait, what? You'd think the realm would celebrate, that the North would erupt in joy, that Jon and Arya would be hailed as heroes. They weren't. In fact, things got worse, much worse, because no one saw it. There was no body, no army of the dead to clean up. Just gone, like smoke on wind. No witnesses, no proof, just a story. And Westeros doesn't run on stories. It runs on power. Later that day, a raven flew from Winterfell to Dragonstone. Daenerys received it during a meeting with Tyrion and Grey Worm. She scanned the parchment slowly, her expression unreadable. Then she read it again, and again. Finally, she spoke. They claim the Night King is dead, that Arya and Jon did it alone. Tyrion raised a brow. Alone? No Unsullied, no Dothraki, no dragons, no one but them. She stood, her voice trembling with quiet rage. They didn't wait, they left on their own. Tyrion hesitated. If it's true, then they saved the world. Daenerys turned her eyes to him, and they burned. They stole it. Let that sink in. While Arya and Jon had risked their lives, to end the greatest threat in history, Daenerys saw something else. Betrayal, rebellion, insult. She had come to Westeros to be its savior. The breaker of chains, the one to stand against death and win. But now someone else had done it. Quietly. Without her, and worse, they were Starks. Her grip on Westeros had always been uncertain. The people feared her dragons, not adored her. But now the North had heroes, living legends, siblings who slayed death itself and didn't ask for praise. That terrified her, and here's where it gets crazy. Arya and Jon never bragged. They never claimed thrones. But that made them even more dangerous. People started talking. Rumors spread like wildfire through the realm. They say Arya Stark faced the Night King alone and didn't flinch. Jon. Snow walked through a storm of ice and came out burning. Winterfell saved us all, not Dragonstone, not the Queen. And with every whisper, Daenerys' fury grew. Tyrion saw it coming. He warned her, "If you go north now, they'll see. It is conquest, not allegiance." But Daenerys wasn't listening. She mounted Drogon, the other dragon followed. She left that night. Meanwhile, in Winterfell, Arya sat alone beneath the old weirwood tree. She wasn't proud. She wasn't even relieved. She was tired. Jon joined her, and for a while, neither spoke. Finally, Arya broke the silence. "Ditu, you regret it," Jon shrugged. "Does it matter?" She looked down at her hands. "No one believes us." "They will." "How?" Jon's voice dropped. "When the Queen arrives, when she questions us, when she tries to take credit, that's when we'll tell the truth." Arya turned to him. "And if she doesn't like our truth?" Jon didn't answer, because he already knew. She wouldn't. And sure enough, the dragons came. 3 days later, the skies above Winterfell turned black with wings. Fire lit the morning sky. The people of the north looked up in awe and fear. Daenerys landed in the courtyard like a storm on 2 legs, her armor glinting, her eyes fire and ice. Sansa met her first. "You're late," she said with no smile. "I came to see the truth," Daenerys replied coolly, "to hear how the Night King fell. You'll hear it from those who were there." "They were the only ones?" Sansa tilted her head. "That's what heroes do, Your Grace. They go alone." Daenerys didn't flinch. But the message was clear. Jon and Arya stepped forward, and for the first time since the Night King's death, the real war began, not with swords, but with words. Because now it wasn't about survival. It was about who would own the story. Who would wear the crown that came after death, and Westeros, it was about to be torn apart again, but this time by the living. The tension in the Great Hall of Winterfell could have shattered steel. Every noble of the north sat silent, eyes flicking between Daenerys and the 2 Stark siblings. The banners above trembled in the draught, but no one moved, not even the air, dared to interrupt what was coming. Daenerys stood at the head of the hall, flanked by Grey Worm and Missandei. Behind her, the Unsullied stood like statues. Jon sat near the center, arms folded, face unreadable. Arya leaned against the stone, pillar by the window, dagger spinning loosely in her fingers. Sansa stood between them all, arms crossed, watching everything. Daenerys began. "You left without orders," she said to Jon, her voice soft but lethal. "You abandoned the Queen's army. You disobeyed a direct command." Jon didn't move. "I followed what was right. Orders don't matter when death is knocking." "That wasn't your choice to make," he looked her dead in the eyes. "It wasn't yours either." Oh my God. Did Jon really just say that to the Dragon Queen in front of the entire North? Yes, and he wasn't done. "You weren't there," he continued. "You waited with your army while the Night King moved. We didn't." "You acted recklessly," she hissed. "You risked everything. We saved everything." The words echoed through the hall. For a moment, Daenerys' mask cracked. Her eyes burned, her hands clenched. "But then," she smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "If you truly did kill him," she said, pacing, "where is the proof? Where is the body? Where are the whites? The generals? You expect me to believe the greatest enemy in history fell and vanished?" Arya's voice cut across the room like ice. "He didn't vanish. He shattered like glass." Daenerys turned toward her, sharp. "And we're just to take your word for it?" Arya stepped forward, no fear in her face. "You trusted me when I killed the Freys. When I brought you the Lannister scouts, you believed me then." Daenerys' voice went cold. "That was before you stepped beyond your place." Arya smirked. "You think I care about place?" Tyrion cleared his throat, trying to break the tension. "Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between. If what they say is true, this is a victory for all of us." "No," Sansa snapped, stepping forward. "You weren't here. Your dragons weren't. Here, this wasn't your war, this was ours. And yet," Daenerys said slowly, "you'd be dead if I hadn't brought my forces to Westeros." Then maybe you should have used them, Arya muttered. Boom. The room erupted in whispers. This wasn't just a political disagreement anymore. It was civil war waiting to ignite. Here's where it gets wild. The small folk of the north didn't need proof. They believed Jon. They worshipped Arya. Their stories were already forming. Songs sung by children, carvings in trees, toasts made in dark taverns. But in the south, in King's Landing, Daenerys controlled the narrative, and that terrified her. If the world saw Arya and Jon as the true heroes, the realm might look north, not to her throne. So she made a move. "I'll take them south," Daenerys announced. "Both of them. Let the lords of the Seven Kingdoms judge their story." Sansa laughed. "You want to put them on trial for winning?" Daenerys' eyes narrowed. "I want the realm to know the truth." Arya stepped forward slowly, deadly, calm. "You're afraid?" Daenerys blinked. "Of what?" "That you didn't get to be the savior. That someone else got the story you wanted." Drogon growled from outside, and in that growl was all the fury Daenerys was swallowing. "You think I care about stories?" she said through clenched teeth. Arya didn't blink. "You care about legacy." Jon stood now, calm but firm. "We didn't do this for glory," he said. "We didn't do it for thrones. We did it so people would live." Tyrion's voice, finally, broke through the tension again. If we turn this victory into a war, what was the point of defeating the Night King at all? No one answered, because deep down they knew. This wasn't about what happened. It was about who got to own what happened, and Daenerys wasn't leaving Winterfell without something. That night, the Queen summoned Jon privately, alone. She stood by the fire, not looking at him as he entered. "You should have told me," she said quietly. "You should have trusted me." "I did," Jon replied. "But we didn't have time." She turned to face him. "You stole my moment, Jon." He sighed. "It wasn't about you. It wasn't about me. It was about stopping him." "I was meant to stop him," she said sharply. "The prophecy, the dragon has 3 heads." Jon's voice dropped. "Prophecies are just stories people want to believe." "And what do you believe?" He looked at her, eyes tired. "I believe we stopped death, and now we're going to destroy ourselves anyway." She stepped closer, eyes softening. "I don't want to fight you, Jon." "Then don't. But you won't bend the knee again, will you?" "No." He paused. "And you won't let this go either, will you?" Daenerys didn't answer, because she didn't have to. Jon turned and walked out. And from the shadows, Arya watched. She already knew. The next war wouldn't be fought with armies, would be fought with whispers, alliances, fear, because when death falls, a power rises to take its place. And Westeros? It was ready to burn all over again. By morning, the snow had stopped falling, but the chill in Winterfell was colder than ever. It wasn't the weather. It was the silence. The kind of silence that comes before a storm, not after. Arya disappeared from the halls. Jon kept mostly to the ramparts alone. Daenerys remained cloistered in her chambers, only speaking to Grey Worm, Missandei, and Tyrion. Sansa. She walked through the castle like a queen already crowned, her words sharper than any sword. Everyone could feel it. Something was breaking beneath the surface. But what no one expected was who broke first. That night, Gendry found Arya training, in the yard. Sweat soaked her collar. The snow had melted beneath her footsteps. She was angry, but not at him. Not at anyone, really. It was deeper than anger. It was betrayal. "You haven't come to see me," he said quietly. "I've been busy," Arya replied without looking. "Everyone's saying you killed him, that you saved us all." Arya's blade stopped mid-spin. "Everyone's saying it. That's the problem. You did, didn't you?" "Doesn't matter." She finally looked at him, and her eyes weren't the same as before. "I thought killing the Night King would mean peace, safety. But it didn't. It just shifted the... Gendry stepped closer. "Then tell the South, make them believe." Arya laughed under her breath. "You think stories are enough? Daenerys has dragons. We have cold steel and colder truth." And that's when it hit him. Arya didn't want to be remembered. She wanted to make sure the world couldn't ignore the truth, even if it meant burning down the lies. Meanwhile, Tyrion was pacing hard. He'd been in the game long enough to recognize patterns. This wasn't about a throne anymore. This was personal. Between Jon and Daenerys, between Winterfell and Dragonstone. And when things get personal in Westeros, people die. He met with Sansa under the cover of night. Not in her chamber, not in the war room, but in the crypts. The dead, it seemed, were the only ones who could keep a secret. "She's coming for them," Sansa said before he even spoke. Tyrion nodded. "She won't admit it. But yes. She'll never let Jon stand beside her. She'll never forgive Arya for doing what she couldn't." "And you?" Tyrion asked. "Will you let Jon lead?" Sansa paused. "He doesn't want to, that's why he should." Boom! That line hit hard. Tyrion leaned against a pillar. "He'll never take it, not unless she forces him to." "She's already forcing him," Sansa said. "She just doesn't see it yet. Let's talk strategy for a second." Tyrion knew Daenerys' strength. Dragons, fire, fear. But the North? The North had unity, loyalty, legacy. The kind of loyalty that doesn't come from conquest. It comes from survival. And when people survive something as dark as the Night King, they don't forget who stood with them. Back in Daenerys' quarters, the Queen was planning. Every move calculated, every rumor monitored. She had begun writing letters, sealed with her sigil, laced with suspicion. She would summon the lords of Westeros to King's Landing. She would have them choose. Jon had refused her once. He wouldn't get the chance to do it again. Missandei placed a goblet of wine beside her. "You should rest, Your Grace. I'll rest when the crown is secure." "And if he doesn't bend?" Daenerys didn't look up. "Then he's a threat." Wait, what? Was she really saying that? About Jon Snow? Yes, because in her mind Jon had stopped being a lover, a partner. He was now a rival. Tyrion warned her again the next day. "This path leads to fire." But she was unmoved. "I was born in fire." That night, Arya made a decision. She climbed the highest tower of Winterfell and stared into the night sky. She wasn't running, she wasn't hiding, she was waiting. Jon joined her a while later, his steps quiet, but not hesitant. "You saw this coming, didn't you?" she asked. "I didn't. Want to. She'll kill you before she lets you take the people's loyalty. She's still not the enemy." Arya turned to him slowly. "Then what is she?" Jon had no answer, because deep down he didn't know anymore. But here's the thing. Power doesn't wait. It doesn't beg. It takes. And Daenerys was already planning her next move. She would leave Winterfell at sunrise. She would return to King's Landing with her dragons. She would call the banners, and she would drag Jon south by words or by fire. Arya watched the torches go dark one by one across the castle. Winterfell slept, but not her. She whispered 3 words to the wind. "She'll burn us." And that's when she disappeared again. No one saw her leave, not even Jon, and by the time the sun rose, Winterfell would never be the same again, because when Arya Stark moves in the dark, someone always bleeds by morning. The sun rose over Winterfell, but it brought no warmth. Daenerys was already dressed in riding leathers, her silver hair tied back tightly, face carved from ice. Behind her, Drogon crouched low outside the walls, wings tucked, smoke curling from his nostrils. Her unsullied were lined up, silent, disciplined, ready to march. No banners waved, no farewell was planned. It wasn't a retreat. It was a warning. Jon stood at the gates. He hadn't slept. The cold didn't bother him anymore, not after everything. But the silence between him and Daenerys cut deeper than any snowstorm. "You're leaving," he said. Daenerys didn't look at him. "You made it clear I wasn't needed here. You were, you are. Too late for that." Jon stepped forward. "So that's it? We saved the world and now we go back to fighting each other?" She turned, slowly. "You saved the world. Don't lie to me, Jon." "I'm not." "No," she said quietly, "but you are a threat." There it was, the crack in everything. The truth she'd been holding back finally spilling out. "You think I want a throne?" he asked. "You think I want songs and banners?" She took a step closer. "I think you want peace," she said. "And peace will never come while I'm queen and you're still breathing." "Wait, what? Did Daenerys just imply what we think she implied?" "Yeah, she did." Jon's face hardened. His heart didn't break. It turned to stone. "I'll never raise arms against you," he said. She nodded. "Then I'll raise them first." With that, she mounted Drogon, gave the signal, and the Unsullied turned. By midday, they were gone. Winterfell was quiet again, but the damage was done. Sansa found Jon an hour later in the Godswood. She already knew what had happened. She didn't ask for details. "She's going to name you traitor. I know. She's going to demand the Lord swear loyalty to her or denounce you. I know. She's going to burn anyone who doesn't kneel. I know, Sansa." His voice cracked, finally. For the first time since the Night King fell, Jon looked tired, not just weary, broken. "She's not who I thought she was," he whispered. "No," Sansa said, softer now. "She's exactly who I thought she was." Meanwhile, Arya was riding through the King's Road, hood pulled low, face masked with mud and snow. She wasn't headed south for war. She was hunting, because something had shifted in her during that last stare with Daenerys. The same feeling she'd had when she looked at Cersei in the House of Black and White. The same feeling she had when she crossed names off her list. A whisper of death. A pull toward justice. Her kind of justice. She wasn't going to ask questions. She was going to stop a war before it started. But here's where it gets wild. Down in King's Landing, the letters had already arrived. Scrolls signed with the Targaryen seal, demanding loyalty oaths and denouncements of false heroes, spreading lies in the north. Lords who questioned her version of the story were summoned. Lords who refused, well, they weren't seen again. Tyrion watched the city shift back into fear. The same fear he'd seen under the Mad King, under Cersei, and now under Daenerys Stormborn. He begged her to slow down. "Let the people breathe," he said. "Let the North speak before you turn their silence into treason." But Daenerys had stopped listening. "They didn't cheer when I landed," she said. "They didn't thank me for surviving. They look at Jon, at her, and they whisper." "People always whisper," Tyrion said. "That doesn't make them enemies." But Daenerys was done with doubt. She looked at him, tired of his caution, tired of his clever words. "Pick a side, Tyrion, before the fire reaches your doorstep." Back in Winterfell, Jon stood before the bannermen of the North. He told them everything. How he and Arya tracked the Night King, how they killed him, how Daenerys had turned on them since, and the room fell silent until Lord Glover stood. "You expect us to believe you killed the Night King alone?" "No," Jon said. "I don't. I expect you to believe I had no choice." Then Lady Mormont, still bruised from battle, stood. "I believe him." "Because he's a Stark?" Glover sneered. "No," she said, "because I saw what kind of man he is on the battlefield, and I've seen what kind of Queen Daenerys has become." One by one the lords rose, some in favor, some not. But it was clear, the North would not kneel again. Jon didn't want it, didn't ask for it. But the truth, he was king now, not by crown, by trust, and Daenerys, she was coming to take that back, by fire or blood. Meanwhile, Arya arrived at the gates of King's Landing, alone, unannounced, unwelcomed. She entered as no one, but she wouldn't leave that way because her dagger was ready, and so was her mind, not for revenge, for prevention. She wasn't there to kill a queen, she was there to stop a tyrant before her brother paid the price, because if Jon Snow was the last breath of honor, Arya Stark would be the final blade of justice. The gates of King's Landing groaned as they opened for the small cloaked rider, who bore no sigil, no guard, no entourage. No one recognized her. And that was the point. Arya Stark had entered the city once before, wearing a Lannister's face. This time, she came wearing no one's, and still she wasn't alone. She carried something darker than a sword, sharper than her dagger. Intent. She moved through the capital like smoke. The streets were cleaner now, but the fear in the people's eyes was the same as under Cersei. The banners had changed, The thrones had been reshaped, but power still walked with fire at its back. Daenerys had taken the Red Keep. Her dragons perched atop the towers like gargoyles of ash. Tyrion's old chambers had been repurposed into a war room. Every whisper was recorded, every letter opened, every raven intercepted. She ruled like a woman expecting betrayal at every turn, because she was, and Arya knew exactly why. The day Arya arrived, Daenerys received a raven, not from the north but from the Riverlands. House Tully had declared neutrality. They would not answer the Queen's summons. They would not denounce Jon Snow. Daenerys crushed the scroll in her hand and turned to Grey Worm. "Send a message," she said. "If they will not choose a side, we will choose for them." Oh, my God. She was really going to do it. Burn another house. Punish more innocents. And this time, Arya was close enough to stop her. But not yet. Arya needed to see how far Daenerys had fallen. So she watched. From rooftops, from market corners, from behind walls. She saw prisoners dragged through the streets. For disloyalty. She saw loyalists publicly rewarded for snitching. She saw the people begin to kneel out of habit, not hope. That night, she found her way into the castle, past the guards, past the doors, into the same hall where Robert Baratheon once drank himself to death. Daenerys was alone, staring at the Iron Throne. No, the melted throne, with firelight dancing in her eyes, Stepped forward without a sound. "Planning how to sit on nothing," she said quietly. Daenerys didn't turn. "You came alone, just like at Winterfell. I work better that way. Did you come to kill me?" "I haven't decided yet." Daenerys turned now, slowly, calmly. "And if you do?" Arya shrugged. "Then you die. Fast." The silence was electric. But Daenerys smiled. "I should kill you where you stand." "You can't," Arya said, stepping closer. "Because if you do, the North rises. Sansa sends her armies. Jon comes for your head." Daenerys' voice dropped. "He wouldn't." "He would," Arya whispered. "But not for politics. For me." Then she leaned in. "Because you lost him the moment you called him a threat." Boom! That landed like wildfire. Daenerys' face darkened. "I loved him." "You still do," Arya said. "But love means nothing if you fear the one you love." There. It was the line that drew the blade between them. Daenerys stepped back, visibly shaken for the first time. "I didn't ask for this war," she said. "No," Arya said, circling her. "But you're about to start it anyway, because he won't bend." "No," Arya corrected, "because you won't stop." And then Arya turned her back. On the Dragon Queen, in her own chamber. That's when Daenerys snapped. "Do you think this realm can survive another war?" Arya paused at the door. "No," she said, "but I can." The next day, Jon received a raven from Arya. 6 words. "She'll burn again. Choose before she does." And that broke him, because Jon Snow had made peace with dying for the realm. But killing the woman he once loved, that was something else entirely. He met Sansa in the Great Hall that evening. The lords were still arguing. Some wanted to send a warning to Dragonstone. Others wanted to declare Jon as king outright. Sansa wanted time, but Jon had made a decision. "We ride to King's Landing." Silence. Sansa stood slowly. "To fight. To stop her," Jon said. "Whatever that means. She won't listen. She'll listen to me. Or kill you. Then so be it." Tormund, who had returned from the wall, growled from the back. "If you die for another Queen, Snow, I'll drag your bones back to the wall myself." Jon smiled faintly. "Fair enough." He turned to Sansa. "Don't send armies. Not yet." "If she kills me, then you send the North." Sansa's voice cracked. Jon, but he was already walking. He wouldn't start the war. But if Arya was right, he would end it. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Arya had vanished again. But she left behind one thing, a face. The face of a Targaryen loyalist she'd taken from the streets. And when Tyrion found it placed neatly on his desk, he understood what. It meant Arya Stark wasn't here for assassination. She was here for infiltration. She had a plan. And Jon? He was walking straight into it. Because if Daenerys burned another city, this time, Arya wouldn't wait to ask permission. The Red Keep pulsed with tension, a silent rhythm of footsteps, whispers, and secrets wrapped in stone. Inside its cold heart, three powerful forces moved toward collision, one carrying fire, one shadow, and one frost. Daenerys Stormborn paced, her war room surrounded by maps scorched at the edges and parchments marked with red ink. Every house in Westeros had been accounted for, loyal, neutral, or suspect. The suspects list was growing by the hour. Tyrion stood near the window, staring at the smoke rising from the outer districts. "You're losing them," he said without turning. "They never belonged to me," Daenerys replied flatly. "No ruler has ever truly owned the people," Tyrion said, "but fear doesn't last forever." Daenerys looked at him sharply. "Neither do rulers." There was no madness in her eyes, just clarity, cold, absolute clarity. "They chose Jon," she said. "With their eyes, their silence, their hearts. They chose him." "He didn't ask for it," Tyrion reminded her. "No," she said, "but neither did I, and that was the tragedy. Two rulers who never asked for crowns, both now on opposite sides of history. Then came the Horn. Jon Snow had arrived at the gates of King's Landing, alone. Wait, what? No army, no banners, no wolves. Just a man in black furs and stark steel walking through the city like a ghost from the north. Word spread fast. The people watched from behind shutters. Whispers echoed like thunder. "He's come to surrender. He's come to kill her. He's come to take the throne." The truth was worse. Jon had come to stop it before it burned again. At the Red Keep, Grey Worm met him at the gates. "Your sword," he said. Jon handed it over. "I'm not here to fight. You came alone?" "Yes." Grey Worm studied him, then nodded. "The Queen will see you." Up in her chambers, Arya listened from behind a lattice vent as Daenerys prepared to receive Jon. She watched every step, every twitch. Arya had hidden 3 knives across the room, one in the throne dais, one behind a curtain, one under the Queen's map table just in case, but she hadn't decided yet. Not yet. Jon entered. Daenerys stood alone at the far end of the hall. No guards, no dragons, just her and the melted iron throne glowing in the firelight behind her. They stood in silence for a long time. Then she said softly, "Why did you come?" "To stop you." Her breath caught, just slightly. "You came to kill me?" "No." "Then you've already failed." She stepped toward him slowly, her voice tightening. "I offered you everything. I trusted you. I loved you. And now you fear me." "No," she said. "I fear what you make others believe." Jon's jaw clenched. "I didn't ask for their loyalty, but you have it. I never claimed the throne. You never had to." Their words danced like blades, each sentence cutting deeper. "You said we'd build a new world together," he whispered. "I meant it." "Then, why this?" Daenerys' voice broke. "Because they won't accept peace, Jon, not unless it's bought with fire." "You sound like her," Jon said quietly. That stopped her. He didn't say who. He didn't have to. Madness didn't come all at once. Sometimes it started with justifying the fire. Daenerys stepped closer now, almost within reach. "Come with me, help me end this. Together we can reshape the world." "I am helping you," Jon said. She frowned. "By stopping you." In the shadows, Arya gripped the edge of her cloak. She was waiting for the moment, the flick of a wrist, the unsheathing of a blade. But Jon didn't move. Daenerys did. She raised her hand. No weapon, no flame, just a gesture of command. And in that instant, Arya stepped from the shadows, blade drawn. "I wouldn't." Daenerys turned, startled. "Of course you're here," she said bitterly. "I go where death walks," Arya replied. Tyrion entered from the other side. Now the room was full. 3 who had survived the long night, and 1 who might still start. The next, Tyrion spoke first. "There's still a choice." "No," Daenerys said, voice cold. "There never was." Then she turned to Jon. "I won't kill you. I couldn't." But her eyes shifted to Arya. "She'll try." Arya didn't flinch. "Already didn't take." The air was thick with danger. And then Daenerys dropped her hand. "I'll give you 1 day," she said. "Why?" Jon asked. "Because I still love you," she whispered. "And love, Jon Snow, is the last weakness I allow myself." She walked out. The war, delayed. The choice, delivered. Tyrion exhaled. That was unexpected. Arya sheathed her blade. No, it was calculation. She's buying time to prepare her strike. Jon turned to her. Then we end it now. Arya's eyes met his. If we do this, Jon, there's no going back. I went past that when I killed the Night King, he said. This is just the second death. Tyrion nodded grimly. Then we do it together. One last chance, one final confrontation, because the Queen had given them one day. And that night, Jon, Arya, and Tyrion began planning how to kill the most powerful woman in the world. One dragon, one throne, one ruler, and 3 ghosts who had nothing left to lose. The final dawn over King's Landing was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that clings to the bones, that makes birds stay in their nests and beggars keep to the shadows. It was the silence before a crown breaks, or a kingdom does. Inside, the Red Keep, Daenerys sat in solitude. No council, no Grey Worm, no Missandei. Just her, staring at the ash-covered remains of the Iron Throne's foundation. The melted steel glistened in the firelight like the ribs of a long-dead dragon. A symbol that no longer held power, only memory. She wore no crown, she didn't need one. She believed her victory was destiny. But she didn't know that Arya was already inside the walls, that Tyrion had already bribed 2 guards, that Jon Snow was already moving. Outside, across the rooftops, Arya crouched like a phantom. She moved like silence given form, her blade strapped across her back, her mind burning with purpose. Her face was her own, but only barely. She had made her decision. Inside the city's main corridor, Tyrion stalled the guards. 1 flask of Dornish wine. 1 story about a goat in Casterly Rock. They laughed just long enough for Jon to slip past. 1 hallway, 1 door, 1 queen, and 1 choice. Jon entered quietly. Daenerys didn't look at him. "You're early," she said. He stepped forward, hands empty. "I couldn't sleep." "Neither can I," she said softly. "When you carry the weight of a realm, dreams disappear." Jon stopped 3 paces from her. "You don't have to do this. I already have." "No," he said, firmer now. "You've delayed it, because somewhere a part of you still knows this is wrong." Daenerys stood, her back still turned. "What's wrong is letting liars write history." "You mean us?" "I mean everyone who didn't believe I could be both fire and mercy." Jon's breath caught. "There's no mercy in fire." She turned then. Her eyes weren't mad. They were determined, and that was worse. "I tried to save them," she said. "I tried to rule through trust, through hope. They spit in my face, they laughed behind my back. But when I brought fire, they listened." "You brought fear," Jon whispered. "And fear keeps peace, not the kind that lasts. Now pause, because in this moment we reach the edge. The final breath before the fall." Arya watched from the shadows above the throne room, her dagger in hand. If Jon hesitated, if he blinked, she was ready to strike. Tyrion waited on the lower steps of the keep, watching the sky. Drogon sat perched, wings half spread, as if sensing his mother's. Blood was about to spill, and then Jon stepped forward. He touched Daenerys' hand and whispered, "You were my queen." Her eyes softened. She leaned forward. Then, steel pierced flesh. Not hers. Jon staggered. Blood bloomed from his side. A blade, thin, poisoned, and cruel, had struck him from behind. "What?" From the shadows a second figure emerged, a woman wearing Arya's face. "Wait, what?" Arya, the real Arya, leapt down from above, just as Daenerys turned, screaming in fury. "No!" But it was too late. The faceless assassin had already run, a gift from the House of Black and White. An assassin sent not by Daenerys, but by the many-faced god. The god who felt cheated by Arya Stark's defiance. The god who sent a whisper to Braavos to finish what she never did. Jon fell to his knees. Daenerys caught him before he hit the stone. Jon, stay with me." Arya ripped the mask from the dying assassin's body. Rage and horror etched across her face. "They sent her. For me." she whispered. Jon's blood pooled beneath him. But he reached up, gripped Daenerys's collar, and whispered, "Don't become her." Then he was gone. No throne, no army, no legacy, just silence. Arya stood frozen. Tyrion burst in seconds later, too late. "What happened?" he gasped. Arya didn't answer. Daenerys stood slowly, Jon's blood on her hands, her cloak, her crownless brow, and the silence broke, with screams, because outside the city had seen Drogon rise, his roar shaking the walls, and then fire. Drogon burned the sky, but not in rage. In mourning, he lifted Jon's body in his claws as gently as a child carries a fallen sibling, and flew east, into the unknown, vanishing into cloud and myth. Daenerys stood in the ruins of her chance at peace. Arya watched from the shadows. And Tyrion, he turned his back on them both, because now no one ruled Westeros, no queen, no king, no night king, just ashes, silence, and a story the world would never fully believe. And maybe that was for the best, because legends aren't built from truth. They're built from who survives long enough to tell it. And Arya, she disappeared again. One final name on her list now, not Cersei, not the Hound, not the Night King, just one, Arya Stark. Because when you kill death, what's left? Only yourself. And maybe that's the hardest face to wear of all.